Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm your host, Nika Sherrill, and this is the ItCast Real Talk on Sex. Uh, we have a guest in the booth today. There is Liz. Um, so, uh, so the ItCast is our community outreach podcast that aims to increase diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. We want to thank you all for being a part of this journey. And this Valentine's Day is coming up, so give your partner the gift of pleasure. Please register for the Healing Through Pleasure series starting March 9th with Queen Reverend Mutima Imani and spiritual guide Asara. This 6-week journey will allow you to discover the power of your erotic energy and expand your pleasure. Get tickets on Eventbrite today. Okay, so definitely we want to hear from you, everyone out there. So please send in your questions, your comments, post them in the chat. And you can also email them to nikasherells@gmail.com. Support the ItCast and all of the work that we do by visiting theitcast.com, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and share with your community. All right, so it's Black History Month, y'all. It's time. We're going to dive into this conversation. Our topic this week is real talk on the exploitation of the Black body. Liz is joining us today. Liz is a technologist and activist with an MBA and a decade in tech and marketing operations. She has been organizing in sex positive circles for the past 10 years with half a dozen organizations. She's also taught workshops on sex positivity, consent, and kink fundamentals, as well as advanced shibari, impact play, and sensory deprivation with Intimate Horizons and the Citadel. And she is a passionate advocate for sex worker rights. All right, Liz.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Nika.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on the show. This is a juicy topic.
There's some real tea here, and I'm here to both sip and spill. So let's go.
All right, so let's start with what brought you here to do the show, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about myself. Thank you for the lovely bio. I've been in the sex positive space, but I've been Black for the past 10 years, but I've been Black my entire life. So that kind of gives me a unique perspective on this topic. And I'm here through your lovely invite from us meeting through the For Love Love Skills Summit and the amazing workshop that you did around shame. And I was just like, all right, you have a unique perspective and a lot to say on this. And there's a lot of shame within our community and a lot of exploitation. And so let's discuss and kind of go from there.
Yeah.
And how we heal ourselves during this Black History Month.
Right. So you mentioned For Love and Love Skills. That was an incredible conference. And one of the things that I heard you say is you wanted to create safe spaces, like these play spaces where everyone can be included and understood and, welcome. So can you tell us what that looks like and what you've learned?
So when I joined the leadership team of For Love, one of the big things that they wanted to push was not just safety for all of our members and people who wanted to join our spaces in these sex positive spaces, but education. And that's where that safety comes from. And I'm known within my circles for using Black History Month to very much so promote some knowledge, drop some truth bombs on people, expand their minds so that when they come into spaces with people of color, there is this like baseline knowledge and they don't kind of go to those people who are trying to enjoy the space for that education, which kind of makes that space inherently not safe for people of color. Because no one wants to go to a play party and have to sit and put on their like educator hat. So we, at For Love, we provide that baseline and that education for people, how to decolonize your sex life before you step into these spaces and do some, in most cases, unintentional harm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I won't lie, like that hit me so deep to my core. And I'm like, it's a very real thing. I was at this play party event and this woman actually had the nerve to ask me to explain white privilege to her. Yeah, that part. So not only was it uncomfortable, But in that space, it was like, do I feel obligated to step out of the space that I'm in to, educate this person who might actually care and I want to make a difference, but also this is my downtime. Like, I don't walk up to you in the middle of something that you're enjoying and ask you a weird ass question about race. Like, how you enjoying white guilt? Okay, I'm done with my rant.
Did you explain to her that like white privilege is just in that case, that conversation right there, the fact that you feel the privilege to come up to me, a complete stranger, and demand labor from me, demand emotional labor, demand free emotional labor in this space that doesn't call for it. Like, you are an educator, you have your spaces where you do these teachings, and there's a cost associated with it, because you know what, there's a value to this labor, but they felt the need to approach you outside of that in order to get what they needed from you. Yeah. And that is a part of the conversation of the exploitation of the Black body. Like, we're constantly seen as the representatives of our race every time we step outside the door. And I've started this and changing people's minds. I call it, it's a mixture of education but entertainment. It's edutainment. So I make my little like quips and points of view like entertaining so that they're more approachable by people and so that they'll stick. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I've started doing with my friends, that I've asked them to describe me. Like, how would you describe me? If I was lost in a crowd and you needed someone to find me, how would you describe me? And if the first word that comes out of their mouth is Black, I was like, there are so many other defining features. And I was like, wait, how would you describe your close friend or someone else? And if your first word isn't white out of your mouth, there might be a problem there. And these are the exercises that I kind of drill in slowly to my friends on how they see people of color, especially Black people. Am I seen as a person who is tall? I'm 5'10", so I'm not a small person. Thick too. So like, that's also something you can know. I'm fine with it. I always wear unique items like this hat. Like, there are so many other defining features. How do you see me is how I start with people who are close to me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you're dropping the nuggets. Like, you're making them easy to swallow. Yeah. I don't make anything easy to swallow. It doesn't happen. And I appreciate the work that you're doing, because some people need it subtle and some people need it hard. And it does not work in those spaces to take away someone's agency or their ability to enjoy because of something that doesn't belong in that space. Let's talk, first off, I actually let's see if I can give a good definition of a play party, because that's a term that's kind of coming up a lot. So for everyone out there listening, a play party is a space where consenting adults will get together and engage in all types of play, whether it's erotic, sensual, none of the above. So that being said, talk a little bit more about what happens in these play spaces for Black bodies, for Black people.
I can speak to my experience, and that this may be different for other members within the community, but it could be quite othering. Like, in these sometimes sexually charged spaces, I become a prize. I become that bucket list item to be hunted down in some spaces. It's not comfortable. And it's like, I'm not just seen as a person anymore. I'm that like box that they're looking to tick, and that fetish that they're looking to engage in. And I'm like, no, and I have to like drill down. I was like, are you talking to me because of me, who I am as a person, or is it solely the color of my skin? And in some places, I've had people approach me and want to engage in race play, which is a hard red no thank you, not if you're paying me, not even if you're paying me kind of activity, because of the level of just emotional labor, trauma, generational trauma that you're just going to stir up for your own sexual gratification. No thanks.
Right.
No thank you. No. And yeah, no. So I don't know if I should like define race play. There's definitely a lot of articles out there about it, but
yeah, I mean, definitely take a minute to share. This platform is educational, and I'm sure that there are people out there who don't know.
Yeah, it's basically the use of it's like role playing, slavery type play, and things of that nature. Any type of racial inequality and the use of explicit like racial slurs within a play scene, or
Yeah.
that type of engagement. So there's power dynamics that are involved as well as the racial dynamics. And it's rough. Like there's some people who engage in it. I'm not kink shaming. Like I'm not gonna yuck anyone's yum. I'll probably yum someone's yuck just to get a rise out of them. But that's just me. I stir the pot instead of smoking it. It's fine. Um, but yeah, it's just a hard no for me. And the way that in some spaces that I've been in, like that's been an expectation that I will provide that because of the color of my skin. It's not what I'm here for. And that's not what a lot of people are here for. And you really have to get to know that like individual before you could go into that space.
Right. Right. I mean, it's one of those things that actually is it's a higher risk conversation. And if you're not with an intimate partner, like walking up to someone randomly and saying, "Hey, let me treat you this way," it psychologically is it's fucked up.
Here's the kicker. They I wasn't random to them. They mistook me for the other Black girl in the scene who I look nothing like. Oh, it's happened to me multiple times with people. They're like, "Hey, are you so and so?" And I'm like, "No, I'm Liz." And then I get hit with the, "Are you sure?
What?
Are you sure you're not so and so?" And I'm like, these things. The fact that you've had intimate like contact with someone and you don't remember what they look like or their face or like it.
Right. And it's objectifying and otherizing. And it's like to remove the humanity for the object.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very, very relevant for me. Like I have been in spaces, and the funny part is that like, oh God, this is a good one. Okay, so like people fawning and being attracted and all over you, like psychologically, that can be something that like doesn't land as an exploitive experience or things like that. So you're like, oh yay, like I feel good. And underneath there are a crap ton of microaggressions. So yeah. um yeah.
Or you become one of the good ones if you invite
Exactly.
those microaggressions in, but then every other Black person is seen as that stranger, that threat, that potential thing. So I've had friends, close friends, who are very cognizant of how they treat me. They treat me like any of their other friends because they don't see my color as being an issue, which is great because it isn't an issue.
Right.
But yeah. But then I see how they treat other Black people that they don't know. And I was like, this is the issue, the bigger issue. Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for completing that for me, because it's like that, like, oh, we're so surprised at how good you are. And those like I've gotten compliments were like, oh, you're so articulate. And when I was younger, I was like, oh, they think I'm smart. And now that I'm grown, it's like, oh, they expected me to be dumb.
Oh yeah, I've gotten like, you speak so well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Most of the time when my foot's not on my mouth, I do speak well. I don't understand. Yeah, and literally we had a conversation about this, but like my name gets me through the door until they open it actually and see my face and get that shocked look, and I'm like, wait, who did you expect
Mm-hmm.
to be on the other side of that resume? I know exactly who they expected. I'm just not gonna make it worse. Stir the pot.
No, I mean, drop the few nuggets in, little flavor. Workplace. This is so okay. The laziness factor. That's one of the things. Yeah. Please share that whole psychological clusterfuck.
So I work in an industry now where I'm on client site constantly, meeting face to face with people, and personally, how I try to kind of counteract that lazy stereotype of that's been given to Black people, is that I work my butt off. I will explicitly like work my butt off, go above and beyond and show like it's not just for me, it's for the people who come after me is the reason why I work so hard. And just so that before I leave a client site, they're like, you work so hard. And like, yes, I wanted to show you this, but the fact that it's a surprise is what really hurts. But you know what? Then hopefully the next interaction you have with a person of color, especially a Black person, you won't have that automatic sense of, oh, this person's going to be lazy. They're trying to get one over. They're going to do the least. And what's been expected in this society is that if we don't overwork, if we're not constantly hustling, if we get any type of assistance, we're lazy. And that is not the case. Like these safety nets are put there for a reason. And it's like if you're not 5 minutes or 10 minutes early, you're late. If you're not working above your pay grade, you're lazy. And that expectation of, especially women in general, having to work harder just to be seen in the same light as their coworkers and be given less pay still for that labor. And the expectation of that additional labor, emotional labor outside of hours, like you've mentioned before. If we're not doing those things, we're not of value. And it's hard and it hurts and it's harsh because I've seen it time and time again with my workload compared to a coworker's workload, and we're getting paid the exact same amount. The only difference is the color of our skin. Actually, I've worked harder than some of my coworkers, and I was told that, you know what? That coworker should get a pass because they're young. And I'm like, then why are you paying us at the same level and giving us the same responsibilities if they're young and cannot handle them? If they're young and cannot handle them, they should be like a junior to me. Or there should be some training involved. Like I was in one of my past positions held accountable and responsible for my coworkers' output. I had to wake them up for work shifts and take them to meetings. I spent time designing an application, which is well outside of what my pay grade was, to collect data because we're doing some data collection. I designed an application on site that basically streamlined the collection process for the 3 organizations that we were working for. And I worked with the IT team in a sandbox to get this developed and then go live with it, all while being still paid the same and being responsible for one of my coworkers. And like I said, when I brought it up to their attention, it's just like, oh, they were given a pass. Yes, they were white.
Right. They were given a pass out of doing work, which is insane. The thing that I hate so much about this stereotype, as we were talking about it, is that it pushes the conversation that Black people, dark, like whatever, they're lazy. And it actually reinforces that supremacist context of working extra hard. It's like, I have to prove that I'm not lazy, therefore I am going to work myself to death to prove to you that I am not lazy.
Yeah, so the only person that stereotype benefits are the people at top who are benefiting from my labor. Right. So like that shame, like you mentioned, you did a whole workshop on shame. It's like that shame of being seen in this light and having, because we're representatives of our race, as soon as we step out the door, our entire race being like seen in that light, we'll sacrifice ourselves in order to correct that and correct these views, which are still being perpetuated no matter how hard we work individually.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you tell the story about what happened in the grocery store?
Oh my gosh, I love this. So I'm from a mixed family, and my nieces and nephews are quite white. Just putting that out there, just very, very much so. And I am very much so not. So once upon a time, I took out my niece and 2 nephews to the grocery store. One nephew didn't have to worry about, attached at the hip. Great, easy to find at all times. Another one, a little bit hyper. So I sent him on a little journey to collect 3 items. And he was like, his favorite cereal, some milk, and a snack. So it's like, just go, please, just get out the zoomies. Just get the zoomies out. Just run around the store, get the things out of my sight. Thank you. And then my niece was throwing a bit of a temper tantrum in the middle of the aisle. About what? Still don't remember. I wasn't paying attention then. Don't remember now. And I had said to her in a very calm and straightforward voice, the same thing that my parents have said to me when I've thrown a temper tantrum in the middle of a store. It's like, you know what? I'm going to leave you here until you calm down. Anyone who kidnaps you, they will bring you right back. It's fine. It's fine. I walk away just a few steps. She gets off the floor. She wipes away the tears. She comes and chases behind me, and she's in no danger. It's a small store. And there's this elderly white lady who overheard my conversation with my niece, my little A and B conversation. She decided to see her way into that process and told me to I should be nicer to my employer's children. And me, being the smart aleck that I am, looked her dead in the eyes and like forced tears because I had to commit to the bit. Sniffled, looked her dead in the eyes, was like, lady, if only I was getting paid. In some places, slavery still exists. Corrected my face to stare her down, to read mind your own business. And I walked away. And this isn't the only time that this happens. My dad hangs out with my niece all the time, takes her to the mall. They go shopping for like school supplies or whatnot. And my niece is blonde hair with blue eyes. Small child, blonde hair, blue eyes, running around. And my dad is 6'3", 210. So not a small human. And the number of times that people have gone up to my niece and been like, are you okay? Do we need to call someone for you? And as a child, she shouldn't have to deal with this. She turns and goes to people saying, like, that's my grandpa. What do you mean? Am I okay? I was like, no, he didn't buy me the candy I wanted, but I'm okay. Is all she had to say. She didn't grasp the reason why they were so concerned for her.
Right. Yeah. No, and it fascinates me because when we talk about those microaggressions, I've never heard anyone walk up to a child that looks, identifies, or passes for white and says, you're so articulate. Oh, you're so smart. Oh, you're so, like, that surprise factor that there's going to be anything there other than be like, I almost want to say perfection. Like, if there's going to be anything other than you being the bee's knees. And what frustrates me about that story is that this white lady steps into your interaction with your family and assumes that you need to be subordinate to these children that look white. As a grown woman.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in and to have to deal with on a daily basis. And sometimes I just don't leave the house if I don't have the spoons to deal with the microaggressions. And I don't have the spoons to explain what happened to, and like why I'm upset, to friends and family who at times I'm gonna check myself and I'm gonna be really raw right now and say, like, I get envious that you can just live your life. Like, you can step outside your door and just be. And not have the assumption of ignorance and violence. Like, those are the things that people assume out of me before I even open my mouth. I'm going to do something violent. I'm going as a reaction, or it's a whole thing. Like, someone, the case of mistaken identity, someone recently just in a play setting called me by the wrong person's name. Which hurts. It hurts, it stings. And then my friends who are with me, you could just hear their sphincters tighten. It's just the clench, because they're like, how is she going to respond? Is she going to lash out? Is she going to like smack this? Is she going to react in like a violent and volatile way? Right. And I very much so do not. Like, I have adopted this matter-of-fact tone of voice. I do not raise it. It gets louder, but it's still as sarcastic and matter of fact as it sounds, in order to not just protect the person, but to protect myself too.
I mean, and this whole the stereotype of the angry Black woman is something that has not been surmounted, and it creates a lot of disregard for what Black women have to say. It's like, oh, she's just angry, oh, she's just going off, and it actually doesn't address what's underneath it. So like, and I've been in those situations too. Like I was dating this guy, and my tags were expired because that shit happens. And so the cops, like, they notice, they pull me over and they come up and I'm like, how you doing today? So I hand them my stuff. They're like, okay, fix it, ticket, no big deal. They leave. And this guy I'm dating is sitting there like tense as shit. And I was like, what's wrong? And he's like, I didn't know how you were going to react. And I was like, me? Like, I'm your concern here. And there is like what I experience is there's not this level of protection for Black people, for Black women as it goes inside of the world. So it's like somehow we are considered the threat.
And there's no one to, yeah, to speak on that. There's an invalidation of our feelings. If we do get upset, if we do raise our voice, if we do show any feeling or emotion other than calm, clear, concise communication. And then there's this, it's just this cycle that there's no one to protect us except for us. Like we have to save ourselves. There's no one coming to, and then that also is seen by other people and has kind of flavored how they treat us. They can treat us any which way because who's going to step to them? Crickets.
Right.
Yeah. Right. It's sad. It's really, really sad, but that is it. Like Black women throughout history, when we elevate ourselves, we're actually elevating everyone else too. And it's a weight and it's a bearing on our shoulders that not everyone has to carry. And again, I go to the words envious.
Yeah. Envious. I appreciate you for using that word because I do feel like, you know, like in the workshop, I mentioned like there was a lot of shame around my race, and not because I don't love my people or myself, but because of the fact that like there's nothing I can do about my skin and you're telling me I'm wrong. I'm wrong for existing. Mm-hmm. That's problematic. And I think people aren't quite present to what that is yet. And I grew up, oh my God, I grew up with that experience. And envy is the best word for it because I did not have good language, but I was like kind of scared of little white kids. And like, not even that they were necessarily a threat, but I was envious, I was jealous. And also like, there's a part of me that's like afraid of them because of that like conversation of they're so much better than you. I want to talk a bit about growing up in that space of like not being protected. So I know we talked a lot about, you know, being a young Black girl and what that is like in realms of exploitation and sexuality. Could you share about that a bit?
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to start with, I've grown up in various mixed circles of people, just grown up globally as well. So I've had this like overarching mindset of like, we are the world, we are the people kind of thing. Like it's never been like, oh, there's this designation between just Black and white and that's it. I was like, there's a whole rainbow of people out there and experiences, but it always comes down to not how I see other people, how people see me. And growing up as a kid and being a child, but being seen because of my height, because of the color of my skin and people's socialization, being seen as much older and a threat or overly sexualized at a younger age. Like I would go out with my dad and I would ask him for like $20 or something. And someone would overhear and give me a dirty look thinking I was like a sugar baby of some sort. I was 16. I was asking for cash for like school supplies. That was it. But because at 16, I was like 5'7", I had an average woman. I was looked down on. And like, there's yeah, their tone or like the look on their faces changed when I said the word dad. And they're like, oh, that's her father, not some older man she seduced. And It's always like young girls and women being seen as fast. Like you're slutty, you're seducing these grown ass men instead of no, these young women are being groomed and seduced by predatory men.
Right. Right. One of the things that I that is a really common conversation that I've heard is like, don't be a hoe. Don't grow up and be a hoe. And I'm just like, what is the context underneath that where you're not seeing that this young girl doesn't even have that consciousness? It's like we grow up fast and there's not a psychology of protecting us. I don't experience from a multitude of sides. Like I wasn't even tall. I'm nice and thick. I'm super voluptuous. And yeah, I developed at a young age, but I wasn't grown. I wasn't grown. And by about 13, there were all these grown men hitting on me. One time somebody was like, will you marry me? And I was like, I'm 14. And he was like, that doesn't matter in my country. And I was like, oh, it matters here. Bye-bye. Like weird stuff. But that expectation that you're going to grow up, that you're going to be available, that you're going to be sexualized is something that's so prevalent. And I've even seen cases where it's like, oh, Black girls, like they're like they were molested, but then it was like, well, what were they doing to provoke that?
Yeah, it's intense, including it happens in front of people's eyes in the spotlight, and people still do nothing. Like Aaliyah was married off to R. Kelly at the age of 15. 15.
Right.
Like what child, what grown-ass man, who does a grown-ass man need with a child? A 15-year-old child. You can wash your own dishes and do your own laundry. What do you need a child for?
Right.
And like just how easily it was ignored. And like I made a comment, and going back to the exploitations of especially Black women, I made the comment, I was like, if R. Kelly was imprisoning young white women and holding them hostage and captive and peeing on them in videos and doing all of this, it wouldn't have been the butt of the joke, and he would have been in jail a whole lot faster than the decades that it took for people to open their eyes to what he was doing and see it as wrong.
Yeah.
Or see their daughters as more than just a pawn or a piece to better their lives, or like that property that's like came to be sold kind of thing to elevate their lives. So like, I'm going to give my daughter to this man and then get money and safety and security in return.
Right. And people sell their kids all the time, you know, and like slavery is not over. It's been branded. There's all these other conversations about it, but everything that you're talking about is spot on. With regards to the whole R. Kelly conversation, it is actually, and this is something that I heard, so we'll fact check this another time, but statutory rape is illegal. So like someone below the age of consent, that's illegal in the United States. Mm-hmm. Child marriage isn't. Like you can legally marry a child, but you can't have sex with them if like, and someone has to say, no, you can't have sex with them for that to even be relevant. So he didn't go to jail on child marriage. Like that wasn't even a thought. And like, this is happening so constantly that like young people are being forced to grow up so fast and not being protected.
Yeah. And it's that exploitation we talked about, like emotional exploitation with like the cause of our emotional labor. We talked about sexual exploitation and like the scene of and the lack of protection of Black women and young boys as well.
Oh yeah.
But like, yeah, even the physical exploitation of our labor. Everyone was talking about like, I think it was like 2011 where things went very US made was like the headlines and the taglines of everything and on everything. And everyone's just like supporting this massive shift. And I'm like, do you know where that's coming from? It's coming from the prison industrial complex that keeps Black and brown people imprisoned and with fewer options once you get out to get you back in, to get that free or cheap labor, once again, that level of physical exploitation of labor. So it's this constant cycle, but yet slavery was so long ago, we should get over it. Oh, we're given so many opportunities. Why haven't we succeeded yet? And why haven't we promoted in like yeah, propelled ourselves. And it's just like, no, we've been cut off from things like generational wealth for way too long. Education has been spotty. And with our education, our public schools being funded by property taxes, people who are in lower income get less money
Mhm.
towards education. And it's just all of these things that are systemic that people are pointing a finger at the individual for. And as a
Right.
community, we should correct that. And I try once again with education and dropping these little truth bombs on people and blowing their minds to help rectify this and as much as I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons to talk about like the systemic reason why, why we're not doing better. And looking at that, there is a lot of conversation around how people of color have been systemically kept out of certain systems, like with the corporate America and the texturism conversation, and like you can't wear your hair a certain way. And like those were directly created to target Black people. Like that's one of the things that people don't even notice or see or understand, that are like underlying conversations inside of these systems of advancement, we'll say.
yeah, these systems are built for I have to change everything, almost everything about myself in order to be successful or succeed. And that's soul killing. So basically, I have to be not me to succeed and to grow and to excel. How do we do that? How do I learn to be someone else or to fit like this role I'm in to play in order to work my way up? And is that something that I want to do?
Yeah. And it sucks because, like the context of the laziness trope, like you have to have um so many credentials, and you also have to behave in a way that's palatable. Like, and yeah, I just have this experience that people wonder why there's not more diversity, and there's not a lot of like understanding or collaboration.
And you can't I try to teach people is like you can't just see a person as a quota just so that you can make that diversity mark or whatever metric that you set. You also have to make the space safe for the people that you're bringing in to your company, bringing in to your organization, bringing into your community, because it's great. You can market to, you can do outreach, you can do everything. But if you haven't created a safer space or safer, a space where there's a welcoming factor to it, those people who you've brought in are going to turn around, walk out, and then we're going to protect ourselves. Bad news travels really quickly. We're going to protect ourselves and others and make sure that no one else has to feel the pain that I just felt. Like I feel like in certain spaces I've been that ambassador. I'm like, you know what, I've stayed in a space to make it better for POCs, all POCs, period.
Yeah.
And if someone new comes into the organization, I feel like the welcoming committee, but I'm doing it. I haven't been asked to do it. I'm doing it for me, and I'm also doing it for them because I don't want them to face some of the crap. I'm just gonna say crap that I've had to face in the past and that I've seen. And I know like a list of some, unsaved people who are just like don't get it or get it and just don't care because it's too hard. Oh my gosh. The number of times I've heard from people that, you know what, thinking and talking about race and minding, how I act and what I say in interactions with people, it's too hard. I'm just going to take a step back and then recollect, and then maybe I'll revisit these things. And I'm like, right there, the fact that you can step away from these learnings is part of the problem. I can't. I literally cannot step away. I can't take a break. My taking a break is not engaging with society at all. Like literally locking myself away.
Right. Right. Yeah. And what this brings up for me is that conversation. I'm calling it the global Holocaust against dark skinned people. Like there has been a large amount of eradication and systemic removal, and people who are like dark skinned people, it's something we can't escape. We can't step out of it. We can't not think about it. Like that is inherently a white privilege. And I'll see even a white passing privilege to be able to like step outside of that context. 100%.
Mm-hmm. And have it be a you problem. It's like, it isn't a me problem. And like learning about how these problems are a thing, it hurts me. So therefore, for my own comfort, I'm gonna step back and like let it be a you problem still for a little bit. Where as in like racism is an everyone problem. If you hold back one group, you're holding back everyone.
Yeah.
If you hold back women, you're holding back society and everyone. It's just like we need to see this as not like a color issue. It's an everyone. It's a human race issue.
Right. And based in that realm of colorism, like one of the things I say is that white people are not the only people who oppress Black people. Like like everyone is a part of that conversation, and it's not inherent on the surface bit of knowledge. Like it's subconscious, and anyone can do it, just like anyway.
Oh yeah, we could go down, there's a whole rabbit hole that we could go down for days.
Did you see me catch myself? Did you see?
I saw that now. I was like, whoop, that came. Bring it back.
Good job. I did a good job.
You did.
Yeah. So one of the things we kind of touched on or touched around is Black women and Black girls not being super protected in these industries, in this society, in this culture. And one of the things I want to make sure we don't step over is what you said about the consequences of assaulting a white woman, or like that whole conversation. Could you say more about that?
So there's a difference in accountability, or like the laws are not meant to protect us, period. The end. That's how it's worked. And the enforcement of those laws definitely do not fall in our favor. There's a difference when you assault, let's just say a person of color versus the price that someone would pay for assaulting someone who's white, and especially if they are well off. We had a case recently, I'm not going to mention any names, but they assaulted a woman. Someone saw them do it. They physically pulled this person off of assaulting a woman. They were charged and they got 6 months because you know what? They shouldn't let, 20 minute lapse of judgment ruin their entire life. Got 6 months and then served 3 of those 6 months and were out on good behavior and weren't put on a sex offender list because there shouldn't be permanent repercussions for their actions. Versus we were talking about how assaults and rapes and things on Black women go underreported because we might not even see our day in court, and we still have to go through the trauma of reliving it for the doctors if they take us seriously.
Right.
If we take our pain seriously. And there's that difference in not just accountability from a law and legal standpoint and law enforcement, but medical as well.
Yeah.
I touched on it before, but I had an IUD put in a couple of years ago. And I went to like a community hospital to get it done. I read the pamphlet. It said that I was supposed to be given numbing gel and then a painkiller in order to, sorry, I cut out there for a second. And then a painkiller in order to, for the procedure. And I was like, great. I talked to a few friends who had had the same procedure done, same process. They were given like a numbing gel, and then they were given like painkillers beforehand to kind of like ease the pain of it, and then also sent home with some. I'm like, cool. I can go through this process. That was not the case for me. When I was there and I asked about the numbing gel, they just shook their head like, what? No, not for you. Kind of attitude. And then I went through the procedure, which anyone who's had an IUD put in, it is excruciatingly painful. They dilate your cervix. Dilate your cervix. It is beyond. It's like 1/10 of what dilation of what you would have if you were giving birth. So 1/10 of the dilation of your cervix. And then afterwards, when I asked for a painkiller, first they treated me like it was a pill-seeking behavior that I was doing. I was like, yeah, I'm seeking it because I'm in pain. And I was actually told that I was going to get one. And it was just ibuprofen. It was nothing stronger than that, something I could have gotten over the counter. And they made me sit in the room and take it in front of them, which is something that none of my white friends had to go through. Right. They were sitting away with painkillers. They were given painkillers before, and they were treated differently at this community-based hospital. And that is something that none of my friends would have to like endure. And they just, or think about, or see it, or do. Yeah, like I was laid up for days in pain because of this. And this is why I'm not in a rush to go to a hospital. And even in going with pain, having your pain not believed. One of my guy friends was just like, oh, I told the doctor that I thought I had like this shin splints or something, or some sort of pain in my knee. They were like, yep, did a quick analysis, like, yep, that's what you have. Sent him away with medicine. And that was it. There were no questions. There was no condescending tone. There was no talking down to them. There was no misdiagnosis to have to come back again for a second opinion. That just being believed off the bat and not questioned for your motives is a whole thing.
Right.
And then they don't think about, when it comes to racism, they think about someone yelling a racial slur to you on the street. Right. And that's racism. I'm like, no, those same people who would throw that racial slurs are nurses, are doctors, are lawyers, are taxi drivers, are Uber drivers. They are congressmen and women. Senators. They hold power, and they take that mindset that we're lazy, we're pill seeking, drug addicts, all of these negative connotations, and that's what they roll with. There are even people who are producers of TV and film and will constantly portray us in that light. And that's how people across the world will see us. So we talked about this before about perception. And I've lived abroad and traveled abroad most of my life. Since I was an infant, I've had a passport, with my dad being in the military. And the stereotypes, and this is why representation matters. So like there being, not just being a superhero, but a Black superhero. And, telling other narratives where, we're not the help. We're not the ones being helped, but we're saviors of our community and pillars of our community matter, because this is how it shapes the perception of people throughout the world, and perception of Black people through the world. Like I was in China once, and people just didn't want to let me into their shops, thinking I was immediately going to steal everything or cause a problem or some sort of issue. Or I was walking along the street, and there's a perception that I was a full service sex worker. There's nothing wrong with full service sex workers, but that's not who I am. That's yeah. Like these are the things, the automatic perception, like having to hide my curves so I'm not overly sexualized or having comments thrown my direction for no other reason but how I appear. Yeah. All these things that I have to, and once again, I go to the word envy. I envy some of my friends who don't have to, or will never have to actually think about this. And I'm glad that I've been in their lives to kind of open their eyes to those scenarios and things, and how I'm treated differently. And yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's a shining example of how people of color discriminate against other people of color.
Yeah.
And that's something like when we are talking about oppression and, all these different things, people immediately go to this, the dichotomy of the conversation without looking at the full spectrum of what's going on. I think that's really, really huge. Okay. There was a quote you mentioned by Angela Davis. Is that relevant right now? Do you want to share?
I think I touched on the quote earlier. I had it written down somewhere, but I don't have it on me now. Did you write down my?
Oh, dear God.
See, I'm throwing it back to you, bro. I can look it up really quickly, because during Black History Month, I take every day to celebrate Black joy, because we don't get to do that. And where other companies will sit and pander, I promote, I raise up, I try to highlight the triumphs and the inventions and the things that have been created by Black people, but may have been taken for granted, or the credit wasn't given. The flowers weren't given to the inventor or the creator of the things. And people are like, oh, that stopped ages ago. And yeah, it's not a problem anymore. That was like back when Elvis, used Black music to promote himself, like the moves, the shuck and the jive that we were doing beforehand, the hip movements that were seen as demeaning and beneath people. As soon as the twist and other things, and Elvis started to move his hips like that, it became stardom and he was giving credit. This is happening again with like TikTok dances. But the quote from Angela Davis that I wanted to highlight, it's when Black women win victories, it is a boost for virtually every segment of society.
Yeah.
But I mentioned this before, is like when we have these triumphs, when we lift ourselves up, we're taking everyone else with us and on that yoke, on the back of our shoulders, and our effort and our hard work and labor, be it emotional, be it physical, be it mental labor. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. This has been incredible. And I really love circling back to that conversation of like, as Black women, like that's the work we're doing. Thank you so much. Are there resources? This is the resource part. What would you like to share? What would you like people to know?
Wow. Okay, so there is a resource and I will share it with y'all. There's a link to it. It is a Google, not a Google, it's a Google Doc. Yes, it's a Google Doc that has links to a bunch of novels that have been written, articles around Black history and the like, and it comes up every year for me and I repost it every single year. I'll send it to you so you can share it with your audience. It's completely free. Someone maintains this for the love and just for the furtherment of like the community. So learn up. If you don't do it for you, do it for me. And the person who put this painstakingly put it together. Yeah, and that's the resource that I wanted to share. There are a lot of amazing educators out there, and you've had a few of them on your show already. Go and buy their book. Go and read what they have to write and share that knowledge. If you find even a sentence within their book or something that they said valuable, share that, or be a shining example from what you've learned. That's what I have.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. There was an acronym you shared yesterday, and I don't know it by heart, but it was CARE. What does that mean?
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, totally look this up and I remember it. But yeah, what I was seeing in the Bay Area, it's around care and it's community, it's accountability, it's like responsibility and exploration along those lines of just taking care when you interact with someone. And that is making sure that you have consent in those interactions. And it's our, like, if you see something, say something. Like, we're all in this together, cultivating this experience, and yeah, just as a community, and making sure that we all enjoy the space that we're in. So
yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I love that. And that really gives us a place to stand and come from. I one of the things that I see is that that's where a lot of this is missing, like, yeah, just those steps and having empathy.
And empathizing with people. Sorry to talk over you slightly. Assuming that people aren't openly malicious in their interactions with you, and they're not coming to hurt you intentionally, but there can be some unintentional hurt, where restorative justice is like a great way to kind of bring yourself back into integrity with regards to these missteps. And yeah, just if you see any infraction or even, consent violations as like, hey, this is not, like, this person just didn't know that this is a misstep. Like someone asking to touch my hair. They don't know how othering and how painful that can be, and like the history and like the years behind it. And you know what? Seeing and being grateful in the fact that they asked first versus just assuming that they could just go and then reach in and touch and like invade my space. Those things. And when you have the spoons doing that level of education and just being like, hey, I don't enjoy being touched. Thank you. Or, maybe other people also don't like being asked because it is othering. 2 seconds that could change someone, and also, help others in the future who may come in contact with that person.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, this has been an incredible episode, and I hope everyone out there got something powerful and magical from it. So please join us next week for the It Cast, Real Talk on Sex, our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. Join us in March 9th through April 13th for the Healing Through Pleasure series. It's a 6-week series with Queen Reverend Mutima Imani and spiritual guide Asara, where we are going to deepen your erotic energy as well as expand your pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Send us your questions to nikasharels@gmail.com. Support the ItCast and learn more about our work at theitcast.com. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share with your community. Thank you, and we will see you next week.